Praxeology for people who hate the word praxeology. Why you do stuff, how you mess it up, and how they rig the game. Intro. Read this before you decide to scroll away. Praxeology is the study of human action, which sounds like something you'd hear from a professor who smells like chalk dust and disappointment. But here's the plot twist. You already use praxeology every day. You just don't call it that. When you choose coffee over tea, decide to ghost someone instead of texting them back, or binge watch a show instead of sleeping, you're running the same basic logic that has driven every human since cave people decided to sharpen sticks. This book isn't going to teach you that logic. You already have it. What we're going to do is name it, so nobody can mess with it while you're not looking. Explain it, so you understand why you do what you do. Show you how they rig it, so you stop playing someone else's game without knowing it. We'll keep the rules simple. Rule #1. Humans act on purpose. Rule #2. The purpose isn't always smart. Rule #3. When it's not smart, it's often hilarious. Rule #4. If you don't understand the rules of the game, you're not playing, you're being played. Yes, we'll be serious. Yes, we'll be funny. Yes, we'll use emojis like medieval scribes used illuminated letters to make sure you don't fall asleep halfway through the most important ideas you'll ever read about how your own brain works. And if you do fall asleep, oh, that's still human action. You just chose nap over finish the chapter. Welcome to Praxeology. Let's ruin your ability to ignore why you do stuff. Chapter 1. Humans do stuff on purpose. The serious version. Mises core. Human action is purposeful behavior, the use of chosen means to achieve chosen ends. To act is to attempt to replace a less satisfactory state of affairs with a more satisfactory one. This is the fundamental axiom. Action presupposes uneasiness, the belief that this uneasiness can be removed, and the will to employ means to do so. The real people version. You feel bad, you try something to feel better. Could be solving poverty or microwaving pizza at 3 a.m. Same rule. Even deciding not to act is still an action. You're choosing nothing over something. Congratulations, you can't escape the game. The serious version. Not every movement is action. Reflexes or involuntary bodily processes are not action because they lack purpose and conscious choice. The real people version. Sneezing? Not action. Chasing the ice cream truck? Action. Stepping on a Lego? Not action. Hunting down the person who left it there? That's action, possibly war. The serious version. All action takes place in a world where means are scarce. Scarcity forces choice, selecting some ends over others. The actor arranges ends according to a subjective value scale, which changes with circumstances. The real people version. You've got $20. You can eat dinner, see a movie, buy 20 McNuggets, and sit in your car listening to sad music. You can't do all three. That's scarcity. Your brain's running a secret ranking list, and sometimes midnight tacos beats world peace. The serious version. Action may fail if the chosen means are not suitable for the desired ends. This does not negate the axiom. It only shows an error in the actor's understanding of cause and effect. The real people version. This will fix my relationship. Text X at 2 a.m. Invade Russia in winter. Napoleon and Hitler both. One more drink won't hurt. The serious version. In praxeological theory, the environment is often treated as given. In reality, environments may be spontaneous, emerging from many actors or designed engineered by specific actors to influence the actions of others. The real people version. It's like a casino, no clocks, free drinks, noise everywhere, all set so you choose to keep playing. Technically, you're deciding, but they wrote the menu and hid the exits. The serious version. If the definitions of key terms like law, contract, or consent are altered without the actor's informed agreement, decision-making is distorted. This is semantic drift. a change in the language that governs action. The real people version, unlimited equals slows after 5 GB, democracy equal choose which billionaire's friends run the place, free trial equal we charge you forever unless you cancel by fax machine. You now have the human action axiom with receipts, memes, and modern life parallels. From here, we can start building out Chapter 2 Why You Don't Get What You Want and How You Accidentally Help Them, where we introduce means, ends, error, and the control grid's role in shaping your choices. Chapter 2 Why You Don't Get What You Want and How You Accidentally Help Them. The serious version Mises core. Every action aims at the attainment of a chosen end. The success of an action depends on whether the means employed are adequate to produce the desired outcome. When means are scarce and knowledge imperfect, error is possible. The real people version, you want X, you try Y to get it, but you end up with Z, which is usually debt, regret, or a new gym membership you never use. That's action error. It's not just you. History is a highlight reel of kings, presidents, and tech pros picking the wrong Y and still acting like they nailed it. The serious version, means are the scarce goods or conditions used to achieve an end. Their scarcity forces the actor to choose which ends to pursue, thereby foregoing others. The real people version, think of means as the stuff you've got to work with. Could be money, time, friends, or the last slice of pizza. You can't use the same slice to feed yourself and bribe your roommate, you pick. That's economics without the boring graphs. The serious version, ends are ranked on a subjective value scale. This ranking changes with time and circumstances. The actor always pursues the most valued end available at the moment of decision. The real people version, at 9 a.m., finish work project is higher than eat donuts. At 3 p.m., eat donuts might climb the chart. At 3 a.m., text X and buy an inflatable hot tub could suddenly seem like your life's mission. The serious version, when the environment is designed by others, the available means and the perception of ends can be manipulated to serve the designer's purposes rather than the actor's. The real people version, ever notice how the grocery store puts candy right at kid eye level? Or how apps give you fake, you're almost there progress bars? That's someone upstream nudging your value scale so their end becomes your end. You're basically a side quest in their game. The serious version, in a designed environment, errors can be engineered. The actor's map of cause and effect is deliberately distorted. The real people version, that's why slot machines flash winner even when you lose money, why limited time offers keep getting extended, and why politics keeps giving you two bad options dressed like a choice. You think you're aiming at your goal, but the sights are bent. The serious version, actors who fail to detect the design layer will consistently misallocate scarce means, enriching the designers at their own expense. The real people version, translation, you keep losing money, time, and sanity, and they keep gaining yachts, data, and more ways to mess with you. You're now aware that not getting what you want isn't always your fault. Sometimes it's engineered inefficiency. In Chapter 3, the game board is rigged the 5 pillars of control. We're going to name and map the exact systems that run the design layer so you can finally see the whole table. Chapter 3, the game board is rigged the 5 pillars of control. The serious version Mises plus your sovereigneous extensions. In a designed environment, the rules of action are shaped by structures that pre-exist the actor's choice. Historical observation shows that these structures tend to concentrate in 5 interlinked domains: monetary control, issuance of currency, credit, and debt; legal control, jurisdiction, statutes, and enforcement mechanisms; narrative control, information flows, media, and education; spiritual control, moral authority, religion, and meaning-making systems; technological control, tools, infrastructure, and surveillance. Each pillar alters the actor's available means and perceived ends, thereby influencing all subsequent decisions. The real people version, imagine playing Monopoly where one guy prints his own money, another makes the rules, another decides what you believe happened, Another tells you God wants you to lose, and another watches your every move. And you're over here thinking you just need to land on boardwalk to win. 1. Monetary control. Serious. Whoever issues the currency can expand or contract it, changing the purchasing power of money and redistributing wealth without direct consent from its holders. Real people. It's like if Chuck E. Cheese could make more tokens whenever they wanted, but your prize still costs the same number of tickets. And they own the ticket counter. 2. Legal control. Serious. Laws define permissible actions. Jurisdiction determines whose rules apply to which actors. Legal fictions, e.g., person as a corporate entity, alter the status and obligations of individuals. Real people. It's when the ref in a game also owns one of the teams, writes the rulebook mid-match, and calls fouls only on you. 3. Narrative control. Serious. Control over media and education shapes the actor's perception of reality, thereby influencing the ends they value and the means they consider viable. Real people. If you control the news, you don't have to hide the truth, just bury it under 50 stories about celebrity divorces. 4. Spiritual control. Serious. Moral authority can be wielded to secure obedience independently of coercion, framing compliance as virtue and dissent as vice or sin. Real people. God wants you to pay taxes, brought to you by the same guys who built the palace. 5. Technological control. Serious. Tools and infrastructure determine what is possible at all. Surveillance systems provide feedback loops to further refine control. Real people. Like giving you a phone that's also a spy, that's also a slot machine you keep in your pocket, and somehow making you pay $1,200 for it. When these pillars operate together, the environment is not neutral, it's a closed circuit. Your actions feed back into the system that shaped them, producing results optimized for the designers, not for you. In Chapter 4, How They Tilt the Table, Changing Costs, Changing Choices, we'll break down the mechanics of control. How scarcity is manufactured, how your value scale is nudged, and how they use choice architecture to make sure you pick from their menu, even when you think you're going off script. Chapter 4, How They Tilt the Table, Changing Costs, Changing Choices, the serious version Mises core plus design layer. In Praxeology, the actor's choice depends on their subjective value scale, which orders ends according to perceived importance at the moment of decision. The cost of any chosen action is the value of the highest ranked alternative foregone opportunity cost. In a designed environment, those who control the structure can alter the relative costs of actions and the perception of ends. This is accomplished by changing the availability of means, altering the legal or social penalties associated with certain choices, manipulating the flow of information to re-rank ends in the actor's value scale. The real people version, it's like playing poker where the dealer can swap your cards, fine you for folding, and convince you the goal of poker is to collect the most coasters. You think you're playing to win, but they're designing what winning even means. 1. Manufactured scarcity. Serious. By restricting supply or creating artificial demand, designers increase the relative cost of certain ends. This influences actors to reallocate means toward the designer's preferred outcomes. Real people. We're out of chicken equal raise the price on burgers. Diamond markets literally keep vaults full so you think they're rare. And yes, that's why you paid 3 months' salary for a rock that came out of the ground for free. 2. Incentive engineering. Serious. Adjusting legal penalties, taxes, subsidies, or access rights can change the relative attractiveness of competing actions. Real people. It's why a soda is $1 but water is $3 at a stadium. They're guiding you. And why parking tickets are cheaper than fixing the actual parking problem, revenue over resolution. 3. Narrative weighting. Serious. Ends can be re-ranked in the actor's value scale by framing them as moral imperatives, urgent crises, or matters of identity. Real people convince people that a certain shoe makes them free and they'll camp outside a store for 48 hours. Or tell them real patriots buy war bonds, and suddenly funding bombs becomes the hot new civic duty. 4. Choice architecture. Serious. By structuring the set of available options, designers can guide actors to select from a pre-approved subset of outcomes without overt coercion. Real people like giving kids two choices at dinner, broccoli or peas, and pretending they made a free decision. Now scale that up to voting. 5. Feedback loops. Serious. Surveillance and data analytics allow designers to observe the effects of structural changes in near real time, enabling rapid adjustment of incentives and narratives. Real people. Your phone hears you say, "I need new jeans," and suddenly every ad is denim. They're not reading your mind, they're editing it. When you understand these mechanics, you stop blaming random chance for your bad options and start seeing the engineering. In Chapter 5, Breaking Out of the Maze, we'll show how praxeology, combined with structural literacy, lets you spot, and sometimes bypass, the rigged table entirely. Chapter 5, Breaking Out of the Maze. The serious version Mises Core plus structural literacy. An actor who understands that their environment is designed can adapt by identifying the real constraints versus the nominal ones, reassessing ends and means in light of the structural bias, seeking or creating alternative environments where sovereignty is greater. Praxeology shows that action is always taken toward ends the actor values most highly in the moment. Structural literacy enables the actor to recognize when these value rankings are artificially manipulated and to adjust accordingly. The real people version. If you realize the maze has walls, you can stop sprinting around looking for cheese that's been moved on purpose. You can learn to climb, dig a tunnel, or start your own damn maze and sell tickets. 1. Spotting the fake walls. Serious. Many constraints are psychological or informational, not physical. These can be bypassed once recognized. Real people. That this is the only way feeling? Half the time it's just tradition, marketing, or some dead guy's rulebook. Most no exit signs are just stickers. 2. Mapping the real terrain. Serious. The designed environment consists of both formal structures, laws, contracts, physical barriers, and informal structures, norms, narratives, taboos. Accurate mapping requires examining both. Real people. It's like playing a video game where the map is 90% fog until you explore. Turns out there was a shortcut all along. They just never told you because it wasn't in their interest. 3. Rewriting the value scale. Serious. Recognizing that ends have been artificially re-ranked allows the actor to reprioritize according to genuine preferences. Real people. If your dream turns out to be a commercial you memorized as a kid, maybe it's time to uninstall someone else's goals and reinstall your own. 4. Creating parallel environments. Serious. When the design layer is inescapably hostile, actors can build parallel systems for exchange, governance, and narrative that operate outside the primary structure. Real people can't win the game? Host your own tournament. Bitcoin, community barter, independent media, backyard gardens, all ways of refusing to run the official maze. 5. Practicing exit. Serious. Sovereignty increases when the ability to exit a system is real, affordable, and repeatable. Real people. If you can't leave, you're not free, you're furniture. Even a rat with a ladder has more options. The maze works because most people don't realize they're in one. Once you see the layout, you stop sprinting in circles and start choosing where you want to go, or whether you want to play at all. In Chapter 6, The Language of Freedom, How Words Make or Break Your Sovereignty, we'll tackle the most overlooked lever of all, the dictionary. Because the fastest way to rebuild a maze is to rename the exits. Chapter 6, The Language of Freedom, How Words Make or Break Your Sovereignty, the serious version Mises Core plus semantic drift. Praxeology assumes actors understand the meaning of the terms under which they act. If these definitions are altered without their informed agreement, their decision-making is distorted. This is semantic drift, the linguistic equivalent of currency debasement. Anchoring definitions is essential to maintaining sovereignty. The 1828 American Dictionary of the English Language by Noah Webster is an example of a definitional framework aligned with natural law and the constitutional order. The Real People version: change the meaning of freedom, and you change the meaning of everything built on it. It's like swapping the recipe in Grandma's cookbook and still calling it her pie. If they own the dictionary, they own your brain's search engine. They can rename cages, safe spaces, call theft taxes, turn unlimited into 5 GB, then we slow you down. 1. Words as infrastructure. Serious. Language is the medium through which actors identify ends and means. Alter the meaning of key terms, and you alter the structure of action itself. Real people. You can't win if the ref changes what goal means mid-game. Today, a contract might mean you agreed to this by walking into the store. 2. Legal fictions. Serious. Terms like person, citizen, and legal often have definitions in statutory law that differ from their ordinary meaning. Real people. In everyday talk, person means you. In legalese, it can mean a corporation, a ship, or a trust fund in the Bahamas. You might not even be playing the same game you think you are. 3. Narrative rebranding. Serious. Narrative actors reframe ends and means by changing the terms used to describe them. This shifts value scales without altering the underlying facts. Real people. Collateral damage sounds a lot cleaner than we blew up a bunch of civilians. Quantitative easing sounds nicer than we printed money and gave it to our friends. 4. Semantic anchoring. Serious. To resist drift, actors must adopt fixed definitions that reflect their intended legal, moral, and economic framework. Real people. Keep your own dictionary. If they redefine consent to mean you were in the room, you've already lost the game before you start playing. 5. Humor as armor. Serious. Satire and irony expose the absurdity of manipulated language, reducing its psychological grip. Real people. George Carlin didn't just tell jokes, he ran a linguistic virus scan. If you can laugh at "war is peace," you're less likely to swallow it. Language is the control lever most people never see. It's invisible, silent, and woven into every choice you think you're making freely. Master your words, and you master your action. In Chapter 7, Money, the original game piece will turn to the first pillar of control, currency. Because if they own the chips, they don't have to cheat at the game. Chapter 7, Money, the original game piece, the serious version Mises core plus monetary control. Money is the generally accepted medium of exchange, emerging to overcome the inefficiencies of barter. In Praxeology, its function is to facilitate indirect exchange, enable economic calculation, and store value. When the issuance and regulation of money are monopolized, the controller can redistribute wealth, alter relative prices, and distort economic calculation without the direct consent of those using it. Fiat currency, money not redeemable for a commodity, allows for unlimited expansion, which erodes purchasing power and transfers resources from late receivers to early receivers, the Cantillon effect. The real people version, money started as shiny rock for goat, then became paper for stuff, and now is numbers on a screen for other numbers on a screen. If you control the game pieces, you don't have to play fair, you can just make more pieces. Like if you ran Monopoly and handed yourself extra $500 bills whenever you felt like it, but told everyone else to keep working hard for theirs. 1. From market money to monopoly money. Serious. Historically, money emerged from market selection of commodities with desirable properties: durability, divisibility, portability, recognizability. State monopolization replaced this with legal tender fiat currencies. Real people. People used to pick money that actually worked: gold, silver, salt. Governments saw that and said, "Neat, now give it to us. And here's our new money. Paper with dead people's faces." 2. The printing press as a weapon. Serious. Fiat issuance enables resource transfer without explicit taxation. Inflation functions as an indirect levy on holders of money balances. Real people. Printing more money doesn't make more wealth. It just makes each dollar worth less. It's like adding water to soup. Everyone gets a bowl, but now it tastes like disappointment. 3. The Cantillon effect. Serious. New money enters the economy at specific points, benefiting early recipients, banks, government contractors before prices adjust. Later recipients bear the cost through higher prices. Real people, first guy to get the fake monopoly money buys up all the good stuff. By the time you get any, the price of everything doubled and the shelves are empty. 4. Debt as currency. Serious. In a fiat system, most money is created through credit expansion by commercial banks, making debt the primary driver of the money supply. Real people, your money is mostly someone else's IOU. The whole system runs on, I'll pay you later, except the later never really comes, just new IOUs stacked on top. 5. Exit strategies. Serious. Actors seeking to preserve sovereignty can hold alternative stores of value, engage in barter, or use decentralized currencies. However, each carries trade-offs in liquidity, acceptance, and legal risk. Real people. If the casino chips keep losing value, you can store gold heavy, shiny, suspicious to airport security, trade stuff directly awkward when the other guy doesn't want your vintage Beanie Babies. Use Bitcoin, but get ready for your grandma to think you've joined a cult. Money isn't just a tool. In a designed environment, it's the scoreboard, the rulebook, and sometimes the referee. If they own the chips, they can tilt the game without touching the table. In Chapter 8 Law, the invisible fence, we'll move to the second pillar of control and see how rules, jurisdictions, and legal fictions set the walls of the maze, and how most people never realize they're even fenced in. Chapter 8 Law. The invisible fence. The serious version Mises Core plus jurisdictional capture. Law is the framework of formal rules governing permissible action within a given jurisdiction. In praxeology, legal rules are part of the actor's environment and thus influence the selection of means and ends. When law is monopolized by a centralized authority, it can be structured to favor certain actors at the expense of others. Legal fictions, terms with specialized meanings in statutory or administrative law, can redefine the status, rights, and obligations of individuals without their explicit consent. The real people version is supposed to be the referee, but in a design environment, the ref works for one team. Worse, they also wrote the rulebook, own the scoreboard, and can change the rules during the game. It's like being told you're free to move anywhere while standing inside an invisible dog fence. 1. Jurisdiction layers. Serious. Overlapping jurisdictions municipal, state, federal, international create multiple layers of rules. The highest enforced layer effectively controls the actor's environment. Real people. Imagine 4 bosses all telling you different deadlines, and the one with the biggest stick is the one you actually listen to. 2. Legal fictions. Serious. Terms like person, citizen, and legal often differ between common usage and statutory definitions. This allows for the creation of separate legal entities whose rights and obligations diverge from those of natural persons. Real people. In normal life, person means you. In court language, person might mean a corporation, a cargo ship, or a trust in the Cayman Islands. You're thinking chess, they're playing 4D Scrabble. 3. Contractual capture. Serious. Many legal relationships are established via contracts of adhesion, agreements where terms are dictated by one party and accepted by the other without negotiation. Real people. Clicking I agree on 37 pages of legalese to use an app is like signing your soul over for free emojis. 4. The elastic rulebook. Serious. Clauses such as necessary and proper or public interest allow for expansive interpretation, enabling rulemakers to adapt the law to their advantage. Real people. It's like having a house rule in Monopoly that says banker can do whatever's fun for banker. 5. Exit from jurisdiction. Serious. Sovereignty increases when actors can choose the jurisdiction under which they operate. This can involve relocation, changing legal status, or engaging in activities outside regulated domains. Real people. If the fence has a gate, use it. That might mean moving, restructuring your business, or just not playing in their yard at all. Is the maze wall you can't see until you walk into it. Most people never even test the edge. Those who do either learn the shape of the fence or how to get out. In Chapter 9 Narrative, the story they sell you, will take on the third pillar, how media, education, and culture shape the ends you think you want and the means you're allowed to consider. Chapter 9 Narrative, the story they sell you, the serious version Mises core plus narrative control. Narratives are the shared frameworks of meaning that inform how actors interpret facts, evaluate ends, and select means. In praxeology, perception is critical. Actors respond not to objective conditions, but to the conditions as they perceive them. Control over narratives allows designers of the environment to influence the actor's value scale indirectly, making certain ends appear noble, urgent, or inevitable, while rendering others invisible or unacceptable. The real people version. Narrative is the why someone hands you before you even ask the question. It's the trailer before the movie, the commercial before the sale, the pep talk before the bad idea. If you control the story, you don't have to control the facts, just the frame. 1. The narrative supply chain. Serious. Narrative flows through media, education, and cultural institutions. Consolidation of these channels reduces diversity of perspectives and increases uniformity of interpretation. Real people. 6 companies own almost everything you read, watch, and hear. That's like 6 chefs running every restaurant in town, different menus, same mystery meat. 2. Agenda setting. Serious. By selecting which issues are emphasized and which are ignored, narrative managers determine the focus of public attention. Real people. If you can't solve a problem, you can still make sure nobody talks about it. Like a roommate hiding the dishes instead of washing them. 3. Framing and language. Serious. The same facts can yield different interpretations depending on framing. Positive or negative connotations are assigned through word choice and emphasis. Real people. Enhanced interrogation versus torture. Quantitative easing versus printing money. War versus peacekeeping mission. Same moves, different soundtrack. 4. Manufactured consensus. Serious. Repetition of a narrative across multiple channels creates the impression of widespread agreement, even when dissent exists. Real people. If every friend in your group chat suddenly likes the same band, either it's actually good, or the marketing budget was massive. 5. Narrative exit. Serious. Actors can reduce susceptibility by sourcing information from diverse, independent channels and by actively comparing conflicting frames. Real people. Stop eating from one buffet. Try food trucks. And maybe learn to cook. Narrative isn't just the story they tell, it's the lens they hand you so that no matter what you see their plot. Change the lens, and the same facts can lead you somewhere entirely different. In Chapter 10 Spirit, the Meaning Machine, we'll examine the 4th pillar, how belief systems and moral authority are used to secure compliance without force, and why, because it's the right thing, is often the most profitable sales pitch in history. Chapter 10 Spirit, the Meaning Machine, the serious version Mises core plus moral authority control. Belief systems provide actors with a framework for determining which ends are worthy and which means are acceptable. When moral authority is centralized, those who control it can shape value scales without coercion, framing compliance as virtue and dissent as vice. Throughout history, religious, ideological, and moral institutions have been used to legitimize power structures, sanctify laws, and mobilize resources for elite purposes. In a designed environment, Spiritual control aligns the actor's perception of the good with the designer's objectives. The real people version: if you can get someone to believe God wants this, you don't have to negotiate. You just send the invoice with scripture in the memo line. It's the oldest cheat code in human history. Claim the moral high ground. Redefine the high ground to include your bank account. 1. Sacred branding. Serious. Symbols, rituals, and doctrines create identity cohesion, making followers more resistant to contradictory information. Real people. If your brand logo is on the building and the afterlife paperwork, you've got a lifetime customer. 2. Virtue framing. Serious. Actions benefiting the ruling class can be reframed as moral imperatives, ensuring voluntary compliance. Real people, it's your duty to pay taxes. Said by the guy funding palace renovations. It's noble to die for your country. Said by the guy not on the battlefield. 3. Sin and guilt economics. Serious. Moral debts, framed as sins, ideological failings, or moral shortcomings, can be monetized through offerings, tithes, donations, or compulsory service. Real people. Feeling bad is big business. Confession booths, carbon credits, luxury yoga retreats, all ways to pay for spiritual peace like it's on Amazon Prime. 4. Excommunication and ostracism. Serious. Removal from the moral community acts as a deterrent, ensuring conformity to the sanctioned value scale. Real people. It's the original cancel culture, but with more robes and incense. 5. Exit from the meaning machine. Serious. Sovereignty increases when actors derive moral authority internally or from decentralized communities, reducing dependency on centralized meaning-making institutions. Real people. Build your own moral compass, preferably one that can't be repossessed by a council you've never met. When they own the meaning, they own the motive. If you can't separate your moral code from their business model, you're volunteering for a life sentence in the church of someone else's interests. In Chapter 11 Tech, the control grid, will break down the fifth pillar, how infrastructure, gadgets, and data collection make sure the maze can watch you back. Chapter 11 Tech, the control grid, the serious version Mises Core plus infrastructure capture. Technology extends human capacity to act by increasing the range and efficiency of available means. In a neutral environment, it amplifies productivity and choice. In a designed environment, control over technology, especially infrastructure and data flows, allows designers to monitor, predict, and influence actions at scale. Surveillance systems create feedback loops. Data gathered from actors is used to refine the environment in ways that further limit sovereignty. Network effects and infrastructure dependency make exit costly, reducing the actor's ability to operate outside the system. The real people version. Tech is a tool, a hammer if you hold it, a handcuff if they do. In the wrong hands, it's like giving your diary, your GPS, and your therapist's notes to the same person, then acting surprised when they can predict your next move before you do. 1. Infrastructure dependency. Serious. Control over communication, energy, and transportation infrastructure allows for selective denial of service and conditional access. Real people. If they own the Wi-Fi, they own the argument. They can't mute you in real life, but they can make your Zoom drop every time you bring up the wrong topic. 2. Surveillance as feedback. Serious. Data collection enables fine-tuning of incentive structures and narratives in near real time, maximizing compliance with minimal coercion. Real people. Every smart device is basically a snitch with a battery. Even your fridge knows more about you than your mom. 3. Predictive policing of action. Serious. Algorithms trained on behavioral data can forecast likely actions, allowing preemptive intervention or influence. Real people. It's like your phone finishing your sentence and your life choices. Based on your recent activity, we recommend debt. 4. The illusion of choice. Serious. Platforms present curated sets of options, shaping the range of perceived possibilities without removing formal freedom of choice. Real people. Like a buffet where all the food is the same chicken in different sauces, you feel free while they're still feeding you what they want. 5. Tech exit costs. Serious. Actors can attempt to regain sovereignty through self-hosted infrastructure, privacy tools, and offline networks. However, network effects and regulation create high barriers to independence. Real people. You can delete Facebook, but good luck organizing your kid's soccer team without getting dragged back into the group chat. Tech is the most seductive pillar because it gives as it takes. You get speed, convenience, and dopamine hits. They get a behavioral map of your entire life. Next up, Chapter 12, Putting It All Together. The closed circuit will connect the 5 pillars into one loop, showing how money, law, narrative, spirit, and tech reinforce each other to keep the table tilted, and why breaking even one connection changes the whole game. Chapter 12, Putting It All Together. The closed circuit, the serious version Mises Core Plus system integration. In a designed environment, the 5 pillars of control, monetary, legal, narrative, spiritual, and technological, do not operate independently. They form a closed circuit. Each reinforces the others, creating a self-sustaining system that continually shapes the actor's ends, means, and perceptions. The circuit functions as follows. Money funds and incentivizes the other pillars. Law codifies and enforces the rules that preserve the system. Narrative frames the system as legitimate, inevitable, or beneficial. Spirit binds actors to the system morally or emotionally. Tech monitors, optimizes, and scales the process of influence. Because the system is mutually reinforcing, removing or weakening one pillar disrupts the stability of the others. The real people version. Think of it like a 5-man con crew. Money guy buys the influence. Law guy writes the fine print. Narrative guy spins the story. Spirit guy blesses the deal. Tech guy watches your every move. They pass the ball back and forth so fast you don't even see the play. And the scoreboard? They own that too. Step-by-step example of the loop. Serious. Monetary. Central bank creates credit. Legal. Law mandates certain uses or taxes to direct that credit. Narrative. Media promotes the policy as necessary for stability. Spirit. Moral authority frames compliance as responsible citizenship. Tech. Digital systems track adoption rates and feed data back to adjust the rollout. Real people. It's like announcing Free Cake Day. Cake paid for by your own wallet money must be eaten in a special zone law. Advertised as supporting local bakers. Narrative. It's your duty to help. Spirit. And you have to scan a QR code so they know you ate at Tech. Why it works so well. Serious. Interdependence makes the system resilient. Resistance to one pillar can be countered by pressure from another. Real people. If you duck out of one trapdoor, they drop you through another. Skip the media? The law gets you. Dodge the law? The money starves you out. Avoid the money? Tech locks the door. Breaking the loop. Serious. Because the pillars rely on each other, strategic disruption of even a single pillar weakens the entire structure. Targeting the most fragile or overextended pillar maximizes effect. Real people. It's a Jenga tower. You don't have to punch the whole thing, just pull the right block. Now that you see the closed circuit, the next phase is how to jam it. In Chapter 13, Countermoves. The Praxeology of Resistance. We'll take the same logical framework used to describe action and apply it to designing actions that break the loop in your favor. Chapter 13, Countermoves. The Praxeology of Resistance. The serious version Mises core applied to strategy. Resistance in a designed environment is still human action, the purposeful employment of means to attain chosen ends. The difference lies in the meta-level awareness. The actor recognizes the design layer and deliberately seeks to alter it, bypass it, or render it irrelevant. Using praxeology, Effective countermoves follow the same logical sequence. Identify the end you truly value uncoerced by narrative drift. Map the constraints imposed by each pillar. Select means that target the weakest pillar or the junction where two pillars rely on each other. Act with minimal resource exposure and maximum exit flexibility. Adapt based on feedback without losing sight of the original end. The real people version. Fighting the system isn't about going full movie rebel and blowing up the Death Star. It's chess, not whack-a-mole. You don't try to smash all 5 pillars at once. You go for the one that wobbles when you tap it. 1. Define ends without their input. Serious. Begin by stripping your value scale of implanted priorities. Distinguish between genuine needs and socially engineered wants. Real people. If your dream is straight out of a commercial, it's not your dream. Delete the ad before you try to live it. 2. Map the pressure points. Serious. Determine which pillar most constrains your chosen end. Prioritize interventions that weaken its grip. Real people. Think which boss fight is easiest right now. In video game terms, don't pick the dragon if you can knock over the goblin's chair first. 3. Leverage asymmetry. Serious. Use means that cost you little but force disproportionate adaptation by the designers. Real people. Make them spend $1,000 to stop your $10 move. It's the protest sign equivalent of a DDoS attack. 4. Maintain exit velocity. Serious. Always preserve the ability to leave the engagement without losing core resources. Avoid binding yourself to their infrastructure during resistance. Real people. If your fight back plan depends on their Wi-Fi, you've already lost. 5. Parallel structures. Serious. Build systems of exchange, communication, and meaning outside the control grid. These serve as safe harbors and proof of concept for others. Real people, backyard gardens, encrypted group chats, cash-only side hustles, not glamorous, but the Death Star can't target what's not on its map. Resistance isn't one big cinematic strike, it's hundreds of small, boring, consistent moves that make the control system spend all its energy just to hold ground. In Chapter 14, Parallel Economies and Shadow Networks, we'll dive deep into building those off-grid systems, the real-world, Praxeology-approved way to operate outside the loop without painting a giant target on your back. Chapter 14, Parallel Economies and Shadow Networks. The serious version Mises core plus sovereigneous application. A parallel economy is an exchange network that operates outside the dominant system's infrastructure, currency, and regulatory reach. In praxeological terms, it is an alternative environment in which actors pursue ends using means not controlled by the designers of the primary environment. Shadow networks extend this principle beyond economic exchange into communication, security, and cultural production. They allow actors to coordinate, trade, and innovate without exposure to the control grid's feedback loops. The real people version, a parallel economy, is basically, we don't shop at the company's store anymore. A shadow network is, we don't even tell them where we shop. 1. Currency alternatives. Serious. Commodity money, local exchange trading systems, cryptocurrencies, and barter reduce dependency on fiat systems. Real people. Gold coins heavy, silver rounds less heavy, Bitcoin grandma thinks it's witchcraft, or trading a neighbor's eggs for your homebrew. 2. Independent supply chains. Serious. Decentralized production and distribution reduce vulnerability to centrally controlled logistics. Real people. Knowing a guy for eggs, a lady for bread, and a cousin for fixing your car beats trusting a shipping container stuck in the Suez Canal. 3. Off-grid communication. Serious. Mesh networks, encrypted apps, and peer-to-peer protocols bypass centralized communication choke points. Real people. If you can text your crew during a blackout without using the Big Five servers, you're already freer than most countries. 4. Cultural production. Serious. Producing art, media, and education outside institutional platforms prevents narrative monopolies. Real people. If your podcast doesn't need Spotify's approval and your kids' lessons aren't written by a committee in DC, you're running your own broadcast tower. 5. Security and mutual aid. Serious. Community-based protection and resource sharing reduce reliance on state or corporate safety nets. Real people, neighborhood watch, but without the creepy ho guy, and more, bring soup when you're sick, then call the city on your lawn. 6. The stealth factor. Serious. Operating discreetly avoids triggering countermeasures from the primary system before the parallel structure can sustain itself. Real people. Rule #1 of the shadow network. Don't brag about the shadow network. Parallel economies aren't about going primitive. They're about building enough redundancy that when the main grid squeezes, you can shrug. In Chapter 15, Sovereignty Metrics, knowing when you're free enough to choose, will give you tools to measure your actual autonomy so you know when you're out of the cage versus just pacing in a bigger one. Chapter 15, Sovereignty Metrics. Knowing when you're free enough to choose, the serious version Mises core plus operational measurement. Sovereignty, in praxeological terms, is the degree to which an actor can define their own environment, ends, and means without coercion or manipulation from a designer. Measuring sovereignty requires tracking. Resource independence ability to meet basic needs outside controlled supply chains. Jurisdictional freedom ability to choose or exit legal frameworks without excessive cost. Monetary autonomy ability to store and exchange value outside monopolized currency systems. Narrative immunity ability to evaluate claims independently of centralized narrative channels. Technological resilience ability to communicate, store data, and act without reliance on surveilled infrastructure. The real people version. Freedom isn't a vibe, it's a checklist. If you can't feed yourself, move where you want, keep your money, think for yourself, and talk to your people without permission, you're not free. You're just on a longer leash. 1. Resource independence. Serious. Percentage of daily needs met via self-production, local exchange, or parallel networks. Real people. If all the stores close for a week, do you eat? Or just start eyeing the neighbor's cat? 2. Jurisdictional freedom. Serious. Number of viable legal or political jurisdictions accessible for residents or business operations. Real people. Can you pack a bag and go where the rules don't suck? Or are you stuck arguing with the hoe forever? 3. Monetary autonomy. Serious. Ratio of assets held outside the fiat system versus total holdings. Real people. If the bank freezes your account tomorrow, how long before you're trading family heirlooms for ramen? 4. Narrative immunity. Serious. Proportion of information sources controlled by independent entities in your personal media diet. Real people. When the news says everyone agrees, do you check? Or just nod along like a bobblehead? 5. Technological resilience. Serious. Percentage of communications and critical functions operable without reliance on centralized platforms. Real people. If big tech banned you tomorrow, could you still talk to your friends, sell your work, and find a date? Scoring. 0 to 20%. Houseplant mode. Survives only if watered by others. 21 to 50%. Hamster wheel mode. Running hard, going nowhere. 51 to 80%. Streetwise mode. Can dodge most traps, still reliant on main grid for big needs. 81 to 100%. Fox in the forest, self-reliant, hard to catch, harder to keep. Final thought. Sovereignty isn't a prize you win once. It's a condition you maintain. The moment you stop tracking it, you start losing it quietly, definition by definition, rule by rule, click by click. Closing manifesto, you're playing the game. Play it on purpose. You've now seen it. The 5 pillars, the closed circuit, the way they tilt the table, the maze, the dictionary swap, the fake freedom menus. It's not paranoia when it's architecture. Praxeology's dirty little secret? It's not just an academic framework. It's the most dangerous self-defense tool ever made for the mind, because it forces you to admit every move you make is on purpose, even the ones you swore were just how things are. Here's the deal. They use praxeology too. They just don't call it that. Every ad campaign, tax code, religious edict, software update, and breaking news alert is a calculated move to shift your ends, your means, your map. You can't opt out of human action. You can only choose whether your action serves your ends or theirs. This is the fork in the road. Stay in the maze. Eat the cheese when they move it. Clap for the scoreboard they own. Argue over which ref gets to call you offsides. Redesign your map. Anchor your language so they can't rename your world out from under you. Build your own exchanges, stories, and networks. Measure your sovereignty and treat it like your oxygen supply. The 5 rules from here on. Name your end before they name it for you. Know which pillar is pressing on you most today. That's the one you move against. Spend your means like ammo, make it count, make it hard to replace. Keep an exit in every plan. Laugh at the absurdity. Humor is the only weapon they can't confiscate. The truth is simple. You are always playing the game. The choice is whether you play it as the mouse, the cat, or the one who changes the rules entirely. Praxeology isn't for economists. It's for anyone who refuses to live life as someone else's collateral. Now get out there and act on purpose.